Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Shauna from Created and Made, and today I'm going to conclude my DIY stamping video with part 2, and I'm going to be talking about some temporary stamping techniques, and that includes using Simon Hurley stamping foam and a quick Play-Doh stamping demo, and I'm also going to show you guys how you can carve your very own stamps out of this carving rubber. Fun stuff ahead. Stay tuned. Okay, the first thing we're going to be taking a look at is Simon Hurley's stamping foam. Now, it says number 6 there because this is part 2 of 2 videos. So if you want to check out part 1, I'll drop a link up top so you can go ahead and check that out. Now, I'm calling this set temporary stamps because this is stamping material that you can use to create something, and then you can uncreated or create something new with it after you're done with the stamp that you made. So this is how you use the stamping foam. You heat it up for 15 to 20 seconds with your heating tool, and then you just press it into whatever you're trying to take an impression of. And the cool thing about this stamping foam is that you can color on it, as you can see me doing here. I'm using my King Art mixed media sticks, and I will drop a link to all of the items that I'm using here will be linked in the description if you're interested in them. And so you can use something like this, which is a water soluble crayon. You can use your distress crayons. You can use actual stamping inks. You can use many things to colorize the stamping foam, and then go ahead and use that to stamp your image onto a page. So I took a print. That was a print that I took from a placemat. I love my placemats, and now I've just colorized it with some rainbow set of rainbow colors, and I sprayed some water on my watercolor paper. I'm just going to take a print off of the stamping foam. You see how cool and watercolory that effect is. I am redoing the colors here, and I think I'm going to take one more to try to get a cleaner impression, because it doesn't have to be so wet either. You can get a clean impression off of the stamping foam as well. And so I have my heat tool there ready so that I can go ahead and dry that as soon as I picked it up, so it wouldn't keep running all over the place. And I really love how that came out. There's so many possibilities when you can add your own colors like that, and do several colors on one stamp. Now, this is how easy it is to clean this up. I'm just spraying it with some water, and I was able to rub off the colors. And once you're done with the stamped image, you just reheat the foam, and the stamped image disappears. That's why I'm calling it temporary stamping, right? So it's back good as new, ready to be stamped on something else. Now, this is the second temporary stamp category that I'm showing. I'm just going to do this really quick. This is Play-Doh stamping. I did a whole video on this. I will link it up top. I've done several videos on Play-Doh on the gel plate, so I'm not going to go in depth or do anything super long with this demo. I'm just mashing my Play-Doh into a rubbing plate, and I'm just going to ink it up like it's a stamp. I'm taking my ink pad directly to the Play-Doh, and then I'm putting the paper on top and giving it a good burnish, and I'm able to get a clean and clear stamped image there. And the best part of the Play-Doh is that you can just pick it up, roll it back into the ball, and stamp it again, restamp it into something else, and you're ready to start the game all over again. And so this is just a quick and easy way to get yourself a stamped image using the Play-Doh. And now, the last thing I'm going to show you guys is stamp carving. Now, these are all examples of stamps that I've carved myself, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, these are carved out of this rubber material, but they stamp off like a normal stamp would, and they ink up really well. in addition to that. So I'm going to show you guys the things that you will need, some of the materials you'll need, and how to go ahead and get started with this. Now, this is some soft rubber material. I will drop a link. The link is in the description. Some soft rubber material that I'm going to be using to carve and cut out my stamps. Now, they have some like harder stuff like this that's more for block printing style, and that I'm not going to be doing that today. So I'm just going to be carving in the soft stuff, and those are my lino printing tools there, and I'm going to be using that to carve this flower into the soft rubber material. So the first thing you want to do is find a method to transfer your image onto the rubber. Now I'm going to be using acetone, and there are a couple of different methods you can use. A lot of people use pencils and tracing paper, and you can sort of rub it on there. I'm going to be using acetone. This didn't quite come out how I wanted it to. It wasn't as easy as I remember it being. So maybe next time I'll use the pencil and the tracing paper, but you just get yourself a little bit of acetone and wear your gloves and your respirators and, you know, safety first and all of that. But I'm using a cotton ball, and I'm just going to rub the acetone over the top of my laser printed image. Now that image is face down. You put the acetone on there and then you burnish it, and that acetone is supposed to transfer the toner from the laser printed image onto the rubber. I mean, it did so, but it wasn't as clear or crisp as I wanted it to be. I could have probably kept going, but the more you add acetone, the more the toner sort of re-wets, so it can get worse if you keep going. So I just decided to stop. And what I'm going to end up doing is just tracing a little bit of where the image didn't transfer very well. I'm just sort of going over that with my pencil, so I can have a clear indication of where I will be carving. Now, this material is easy to draw on. You can actually just draw your image directly onto the material. I didn't choose to do that, obviously, but you can do that. And now I'm just going to go in with my box cutter. And when I'm cutting larger chunks out of this rubber material, I like to use a box cutter. It cuts through it pretty easily. And so here are my lino cutting tools. And lino is Lino, lino cutting tools. And these are two different brands, two different tools, but they come with these sort of interchangeable tips, and the tips are different sizes. Now, this is called a gouge tool, and so the gouge tips, they just have differing sizes. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just going in and to the rubber material with my gouge tool, and I'm going to cut around my image. I'm making just sort of an outline, which makes it easier to remove the material that needs to be removed as I continue to carve the stamp. So I'm going around the outline of the flower, and you will see me do some things that no one should really do when you're stamp carving, which is you should not be carving towards your non-dominant hand. So you can see me do it a couple of times where my tool is pointed towards my left hand, and the reason you don't want to do that is because the tool can slip and you can get all stabby on your fingers and knuckles, and that doesn't feel good. So you want to avoid doing that if at all possible, or pay more attention to it than I seem to be paying. Now, what I'm doing with this image is I think, well, right this second, I'm changing out to a larger tip, I believe. And so what I'm doing to this image is I'm carving out everything that was not printed. So the white part of the image, that is what I'm going to be removing, and what's going to remain is the part that transferred over as black. And you can change tips. I have two tools because I don't like to change tips that often. I usually try to keep a smaller tip on one of them and larger on the other, but I end up having to change them sometimes anyway. But that's the reason why I have two of them. And I'm just going through and cutting out carefully, as careful as possible, the white part of the stamp. Now this part is the circle, and I just wanted to show you the technique for cutting out something that is round like that. You really let the carving material do the work by rotating it, and that way you can get a nice round carve out. And you have to clean it up a little bit. Obviously there's some white left there in the center, but it really does do a great job of helping you keep that circle intact just by rotating the material slowly as you sort of just hold the carving tool in place. Now, the next step that I'm going to do is after I skipped over cutting out the rest of the stamp, but now what I'm going to do is remove all of this extra external material that is not part of the flower stamp. Now, the reason I like to take this off is because when you stamp it, that part's going to be in there, and I don't want that part in there. So here it is, all finished. And bonus stamp on the back side, I did the negative of the flower. So this stamp is actually double-sided. I did both the positive and the negative, and you'll see how easily these ink up and how beautifully they stamp. Now normally the first ink up that you do, it shows you places where you need to fix some of the carving, but this one actually turned out pretty well. I didn't see any areas that needed to be cut down, and when you ink it, that really exposes those areas. So it looked actually pretty good. And now I'm going to go ahead and stamp off the back side, the negative image, and you guys see how great these came out. And it was so easy, so straightforward. You do need some supplies, you need to invest in some equipment, but I think it's totally worth it. And the little pieces that you cut off can be made into tiny little stamps too. It took me 3 seconds. I carved that little leaf, and even the pieces that aren't carved, that little triangle piece, can be used to stamp. Now, I wanted to show you guys this because I've heard people do this before. I've heard of this being done. And this is a pink eraser from the Dollar Tree that people have used for carving. This is the first time I did it, and I didn't love it because it's kind of crumbly. The material is not as stable as the material that is made for carving. But I mean, if you just want a tiny little practice piece or just want to get the hang of sort of using the tool, you can try this. But the tool does handle differently in material that is crumbly like this, so I don't know that I would recommend it, but it can be done, and it can probably be done better than what I'm doing here because I just drew a sad little flower, and he was a little bit ugly, but it can be stamped, it can be carved, and maybe you can use it for practicing. So let's see what this looks like. See, he had one little leaf, and I didn't really like that so much, so I gave him another little leaf, and he was a bit happier. So that is the pink eraser stamp. Okay, that'll do it for part 2 of our DIY stamping video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you got some good ideas, got your creative juices flowing. If you like this video, please go ahead and leave a like, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I hope to see you guys next time. And in the meantime, keep creating and making. Bye-bye.